Welcome to today's video. We're going to cover how I went from 375 pounds with a variety of other health issues to where I'm at today, which is 54 pounds down. And some of those issues resolved, some of them are improved, but nonetheless, a lot of great progress in the last 9 months. And it really breaks down to really three different 3 month segments. And each one had its own unique twist, its own unique learning experiences. And so I really want to share with you kind of what each of those were, the good, the bad, and the ugly of all of them, and how I learned to build the three pillars that I've been talking about: the physical, mental, and spiritual. So let's get after it. All right, so first 3 months. This is July, August, and September of 2023. As I mentioned in my last video, it really flipped my world upside down in a lot of ways, from a relationship standpoint, from just how I was living standpoint. And at this point, I was actually living with some family members for a few months just to get back on my feet and figure out how I'm going to move from here. And so I'm very grateful to them, and they're, people that really were embodying what I wanted to be in terms of, a health standpoint. And they always abided by a rule called the 80-20 rule. And that 80% being, you stick to your plan, you do perfect. And that other 20%, you don't go too crazy, but you allow yourself to indulge. Or if there's a family gathering, you have some drinks, you have a good time, but you don't go too nuts where you ruin everything else. But, have some fun, enjoy some things, and not have it be so strict to where you're just not enjoying that aspect of life. And so in these 3 months, it was actually super easy for me from a physical standpoint. I lost 40 pounds in 3 months. It was insane. I was shedding weight like crazy. It was super motivating. And I was doing all this with pretty much just nutrition. I mean, I was working out maybe 1 to 3 times a week. And when I did, it was low intensity. I just didn't have the energy or the bandwidth in my head to really do all of that all at the same time. And so it was pretty much 95% nutrition, and it was great. I was super happy with it. I was motivated to, build in the gym as well and kind of bring that activity level up. But at that time, in those 3 months, like I said, not a ton of activity level, more than I was doing, and mostly nutrition. And there wasn't a lot of, there was opportunity to mess up, but there wasn't a lot of, I would say, ways for me to screw up in the way that I used to, where I just not think about it. There's no one there to hold me accountable. I'm just myself. I'm going to screw up because I can. And living with people that are doing the right things and they're kind of watching you in a way, the only way for me to screw up would be I'd have to go out, do the bad things, come back in, or sneak whatever the bad food would be in and hide it from them, throw it away without them knowing. Like, I'd have to sneak around essentially to make that happen. And I didn't do that. I stuck to the plan. I did what I had to do, and I lost 40 pounds, and it was tremendous progress. And, the one thing that, really flipped everything for me is when we get into these next 3 months, where although the first 3 seemed fantastic, there were a lot of things I ignored and didn't address that came to fruition in those next 3 months. So let's see what that is. All right, so now, we just finished July, August, September, losing 40 pounds, feeling good. After that, I moved out on my own. October, November, December, and a little into January is the next 3 months I'm talking about here. I moved out on my own. I got my own apartment, which I'm currently in right now, and realizing, this was the first time I actually had lived alone. I always had a significant other, a roommate, or was surrounded by a lot of people if I did have my own room or something like that. And so it's my first time really by myself. And, as I've touched on in my other videos, I'm someone that overthinks. I get in my own head a lot. And so obviously living alone, just a breeding ground for me to do exactly what I used to do. And so, I think these next 3 months when I moved on my own, I was a little cocky. I was sitting here thinking, I lost 40 pounds in 3 months. Like, you know what? Like, I'm going to enjoy life a little bit more. Holidays are coming up. I'm going to be strict, but, let's enjoy life a little bit. Let's, not be so strict. So what if I lose 20 pounds these next 3 months? It's still fantastic. And that was terrible. That was like the freaking worst idea I could have come up with. And couple that with, at the time, I took on a second job just to make a little extra money and get out a little bit more. And so I was working like 70, 80 hours a week. And so I had minimal time to meal prep. I mean, shit, I barely had time to think sometimes. And, I suffered from that too, where sometimes I just went and got fast food because that's what was open after I worked. And so, it was just that coupled with being in my own head and all those other pieces. It was just, it was negative in a lot of ways. And, the only positive I would say in these few months was that I was increasing my activity level in the gym. It was more like 3 to 4 times a week with slight uptick in intensity. But, those other pieces of giving myself slack when I really shouldn't have, when I had enough, from an eating standpoint, taking on too much and putting more stress on myself when I didn't really need to. It's not like I needed the second job. It was just, I thought it'd be fun. I thought it'd be a little extra money and help get to my goals a little faster. And it just turned out to be more stress, more headache, more of a detriment to what I was trying to do in the long run. And, you couple all of that with the holidays and letting myself lapse a little there. It just, it just overall wasn't good. But the one thing that did come out of it was learning a lot, because in that whole time frame, I didn't lose anything. I literally didn't lose a pound. I fluctuated a lot. I gained a little and like, oh crap, I gotta fix that. I'd fix it, I'd lose a little, and then I'd get back and forth the whole time. And I don't know why I didn't learn in the midst of it. But, the one thing I think that was the biggest detriment during that time was, I had a lot of stressful moments. I had a lot of moments where I was in my head. I was questioning all the decisions I made to flip my world upside down, which is all for the best, and I truly believe that. But at the time, I had a lot of time to myself and was just curious and wondering why in the world I did that. Was it the right move? Like, am I moving in the right direction? And what really was the biggest lesson learned was towards the end of that, in about early January, after the holidays. I started to stress a lot about my job. And it's funny because, as I mentioned, I took a lower stress job. I was busy, but like, it didn't feel like crazy busy. And so I was like, man, am I busy enough? Am I going to lose my job because I'm not feeling overwhelmed? And I was getting in my own head in ways that didn't even make any sense. Like, you're telling me I was stressing just as hard because I was not having a ton on my plate and not feeling overwhelmed, rather than stressing because I'm overwhelmed. It was like total opposite, made no sense. If you get a little glimpse of kind of what I do in my own head sometimes. And so, it was just all bad from that standpoint. I just kept spiraling. And then, one night, this is full transparency mode. I say good, bad, and the ugly. Here's the ugly. I was laying in bed and, I was sitting here wondering all those things of like, why am I stressing over something that's not even stressful? That's actually a good thing, to have a little more time on my hands. And, I was brought to tears because I was just like, is this my life? Am I literally, whether I'm overly stressed or overly worked at work, am I just going to sit here and stress no matter what, even if things are good and I'm not overly worked or overwhelmed with the work I'm doing? Like, am I really going to be in my head that much all the time to where I just can't enjoy life, despite me trying to make all the positive changes in the world? And I was crying. I prayed to God, and I hadn't prayed to God in a while at this point. I prayed to God and said, I need help. I need a sign. I need something. And, I just need help pointing in the right direction of what I got to do to figure this out. And it's funny, just after that, I started like being like, okay, maybe I need to like text my mom. Let me text my mom and just say, hey, I need to chat. I'm not doing well. Like, I don't know what to do. I need your help, and send that text. And in my head, I'm like, nah, like, you don't need to do that. You're going to go to bed. You're going to wake up. You're going to get over this. You don't need to bother anybody. Just, get over it. You'll be fine. And that's kind of what I used to always do. And it's funny, since it was just after that prayer, in my head, I'm like, you're an idiot. That was God answering your prayer. you typed out that text, just hit the send button. That's the help you need. Because as soon as you hit that send button, your mom's not going to back off. Your mom's going to tell you you're going to talk about it. And so, it's one of those things. I think there's if it's a meme or whatever it is, where it's like, oh, I need help. I need you to send somebody my way. And they send somebody and they're like, no, God's going to answer my prayer. And it's like God was answering your prayer. And so I hit the send button, had a really good conversation with my mom the next day. And, there's a lot of research going on of like, okay, what are the things that I can do, or what are the things that I'm not doing that I should be, that will help not only my physical health, but my mental health, my spiritual health. And, I left that conversation very excited about the opportunities that were ahead of me. Because from a mental health standpoint, it was me realizing that I'm sitting here working in this little dark cave that right now is a lot brighter because I have some things like my blinds open, I have a SAD lamp. I forget what SAD stands for, but essentially a false daylight, sun rays type of lamp that's supposed to help boost mood, boost your mentality. And so those are some of the things that I did to try to help, prevent myself from getting to that downward spiral. Things like going out for walks in the morning, especially when it's sunny. Things like working from somewhere else instead of being where I'm at right now, working from my apartment. So whether it's a coffee shop, a building down the street that was open to people working from there, so it was just like, half the week, get out of the house, get out of that apartment, stop being alone, find groups, find people to be around. Even if you're not talking to them, just being around people was a huge thing that's supposed to help with, sadness, with stress. And, it helps to be somewhat of a distraction to being in your own head. And so, it brought me to listening to podcasts. Shout out to Andrew Huberman. If you have never listened to the Huberman podcast, I'd highly recommend it. A lot of science-based podcast discussions around mental health, spiritual health, physical health, a wide variety there. And that helped me tremendously and still does. And so, those 3 months, man, I made no progress physically, but I didn't even really make any progress mentally or spiritually. But that phase ended with me realizing that I needed to address all 3 pillars. Like I've been saying in the last few videos, you have to address the physical, mental, and spiritual. When you lack on one, the others will start to fall. And that's exactly what happened. I didn't address the other 2, and I started to fade. I got in my own head, and I made no progress. The only bright side was the fitness started to increase, and I didn't gain. I was able to balance that and not at least blow up to where I was before or anything like that. So it really just set the stage for, the last 3 months up to today, and that's what we're going to hit on next. All right, so last 3 months leading up to today, like I said, I really lost 40 pounds in the first 3 months, nothing in the 3 months after. I actually went to the doctor in January, and he was like, man, he goes, you didn't really make any progress. I gave him some insights into kind of why I didn't. I did do my blood work, though, and there was a lot of things that were improved and some things that were eliminated in a healthy range again. And so, it was still good progress, but, that really, hit home for me of, man, all the things you just learned about, you really need to take action because you just came to a doctor's appointment and, in a way, kind of wasted this doctor's time. It was a little bit of an embarrassment, to be honest, and I don't like to be embarrassed. So, it was just one of those times where it was like, okay, you now know that you have to address all 3 pillars, and if you don't, you're not going to see the progress that you need to see. And so I put a plan together and essentially was like, okay, I know for my physical health, I need to get into the gym. I'm feeling better, feeling stronger. Let's increase the intensity. Let's increase the frequency. So I started planning to go, 4 to 5 days minimum, sometimes 6, and at a much higher intensity. Make sure I'm doing cardio. Make sure I'm really dripping sweat before I leave the gym to show that, I'm really working. And so from a physical standpoint, that's what I was doing for fitness. From the nutrition standpoint, I was having more time to meal prep because I cut that second job. I was, mapping out what the meals looked like. Even if I didn't meal prep, I knew like, okay, this is the food I'm gonna buy. These are the things I'm gonna do. And the only way I'm gonna screw up is if I go out and get extra, or I go out and eat terribly, or do something stupid. And so I started to incorporate that. I've had some ebbs and flows, some times where I've stalled out because I had a little too much fun, or indulged a little too much, or had some things that I thought were healthy but really weren't. Um, and so, the other piece that I thought has been huge, and I'm gonna continue to do, was swapping out healthy alternatives for things that are normally not healthy. So, for example, in the previous 3 months, when I'd get off work, I'd go to McDonald's and get, which is my go-to meal when I go there, is a large double quarter pounder with cheese with a large fry. I didn't really get a like sugary soda. I'd do like a diet soda, or just get water or whatever. So thankfully I didn't totally blow that out of the water. But that meal alone, when you do the calorie count on that, it's like 1,500, 1,700 calories just for that. That assumes you don't eat or do anything else throughout the day, which is unrealistic. And so, I was like, man, I still really want a burger, but I don't want to go to McDonald's. I don't want to blow all those calories. I'm like, there's got to be a way that I can do things better at home. And there was. It was as simple as swap out lean meat. Instead of the 80-20 meat, 80% lean, 20% fat, do 90-10 or 95-5, which is what I do now. I didn't at first, but I gradually worked my way to the leaner meat. Cheese, thinly sliced cheese to cut out some calories or reduce fat. Or believe it or not, American cheese actually is pretty low calorie. From the bun standpoint, instead of having the bigger, which sometimes are better, 200, 300 calorie bun, get a keto bun or get a wheat bun, and it's just 100 calories. And realizing that that's just the vessel for all the goodness inside. So you don't need to waste the calories on that exterior. And then from a fries standpoint, I learned a few tricks up my sleeve there. I have an air fryer, and so I learned that if you boil the fries for 10, 15 minutes till they're slightly soft, dry them, and then put them in the air fryer, they actually turned out extremely crispy, almost like they were deep fried. Not exactly the same, because I don't want to burst any bubbles there, or I do want to burst the bubbles there, just so you don't expect them to be just like, deep fried French fries. But doing all those swaps, I still ended up with a burger that tasted fantastic. Oh, and one other piece actually, sugar-free sauces, or sauces that are lower sugar or lower calorie. Easy way to cut out those extra calories that could be there. And so, I turned a 1,500, 1,700 calorie meal into 8. And that was having pretty much the same exact thing. A double cheeseburger with a lot of fries. Like, I'm talking 2-3 potatoes worth of fries, air fried, only 200-300 calories. And so, those swaps made my ability to indulge in something that I normally would have got and blown my my caloric intake out the window. It brought it in where I'm like, well, shit. Like, if I wanted to have that same amount of calories, I could have 2 of these burgers, 2 orders of fries, which I don't even think I could consume completely without puking at this point. But nonetheless, from a physical standpoint, it was all about honing in on the nutrition, honing in on what I can do to make what are normally unhealthy options healthier and still enjoy them, working out more, working out with higher intensity, and that totally shaped my physical goals of like, this is how I'm going to move forward. I may need to fine tune them as I lose weight and whatnot to lower calories, or maybe not indulge as much. But so far it's been working. And then from a mental standpoint, walking in the morning, or at some point during the day, going for a walk in the sun just to get some fresh air, get the sunlight on your face, get a little more color. I have my sad lamp here. I have that on every single day. It's like rituals. Before I make my coffee, I turn on the lamp. Before I go to, we're right around like 7 or so, I turn it off. So from a mental perspective, doing some of that, going to work at other places now, probably like 2-3 days a week. I'm working somewhere else outside of my apartment just to be around people, be able to have conversations, even if it's just hi or talking to the barista or whatever it is. Still better than sitting at home. When I go to the gym now, like feel more confident because I'm looking better, I'm feeling better. And so, from a mental perspective, all those things have helped tremendously. And then I really didn't address the spiritual until probably the last month. Checked out, I was trying to find churches that had folks in my age range, late 20s, early 30s, that had some good groups that I could connect with just to try to meet people, maybe get some friends. Because that was one thing in my previous relationship is I didn't really prioritize making friends outside of my significant other and my family members. Didn't feel necessary. And I also wasn't in the best headspace. And so now I'm like, I want friends. I want people that I can go out with and hang out with and, just have options, not feel like I'm on my own. And so, I'm starting to do that. I tried out one church and some groups. People were great. Just was a weird fit for me. It didn't feel right. And then oddly enough, my mom happened to be getting something done and was talking to this lady that was about my age. Actually was also, ending a significant relationship at one point, and mentioned a church that she goes to, that her and her boyfriend go to, and that, it was fantastic. It was very friendly, very family oriented, and family oriented in the sense that people acted as if everyone was family, and that the majority of the folks were in their late 20s to early 30s, and that they also had fantastic group settings that they've also joined. When I say they, I mean her and her boyfriend. And she was willing to reach out to me and connected me with a lot of folks there on the first Sunday. And this was just this past Sunday. And I plan to keep going there. And she has some other folks she wants to connect me with, including her boyfriend. And so I'm looking forward to, really branching out to that church. It felt like home. It really did. All the people that I've met were fantastic. One of them actually already was like, hey, let's go grab a coffee and chat. And, doing that tomorrow. And so it's just overall a fantastic atmosphere, and that feels like the right way to start shifting things from the spiritual level. And so, I'm excited for what's to come. Really these last 3 months, some good progress from the weight department, great progress in the mental perspective, and, I'm starting to make great progress in the spiritual department. And so, like I said, this last few months, I really learned that everything I did previously was great, and there were some certain challenges that I had to overcome, but unless I dealt with all three pillars at the same time, I was going to fail. And I noticed, from time to time when I neglect the spiritual or neglect the mental, that the physical suffers. And I don't think about it, or I stress and I'm like, let me have this candy bar. And it's like, why did you do that? And they're like, oh, because your mental is messed up. Like, address the mental. And so, I say all that because, and I went through this whole story just to share with you how you can make progress and not make progress and be wondering why and trying to figure it all out. And I really do feel like I've learned those three pillars and what I need to do to really have success now and in the future. And so really looking forward, my general goal from a weight perspective is 250 pounds to start. I think when I get there, I'll want to hone that in and get to like 220, 230, depending on how I'm feeling. But 250, I think, is a good start to where I think I'll be predominantly healthy, especially with the amount of muscle mass that I have. And, I want to continue the mental and spiritual journey and really find those right groups, find the right methods that help me stay in a good mental state for the most part. And I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for what's to come. A lot of work to still be done. But like I said, I want to get everyone up to speed into how I got to today. And then now future content's going to be videos on my workouts, videos on things I've learned from time to time. My goal is to do a weekly check-in video. It won't be as long as these last videos, I promise. But just to give you an update on where I'm at from a weight perspective, where I'm at from a measurements perspective, what are some things that I've learned or maybe haven't learned in the last week. But really just try to let you see a glimpse into the day in the life type of activities that I'm going to go through and that you might go through. And my hope, as always, as I've said, I want this channel to help somebody that's in the midst of their journey and not feel like they're alone or feel like they're being talked to by somebody that knows it all. I don't know it all. I'm going to tell you what I do learn, what I fail at, and what I do great at. And, I'm excited to share that journey, and I hope y'all continue to follow me along. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.